let me write the syntax here, how we are going to create data member. Okay, let's see the syntax, then we will see what we can do it. So now again, the data member is going to be my access specifier. What access specifier, where this can be accessible, and it's a optional. If you do not want to write, that's fine. It will take the class access specifier whatever we have, and we can define it as final also, some keywords I'm saying, and also you can define it as static. I'll explain all these things what is going to happen.
So
Okay,
all the things in the
then
CA box are optional. That's what you said.
optional. For whatever writing in the box, that's optional. Okay,
Okay.
then you can give your data type. See, I'm not writing data type inside the box, so it's required. You have to give data type and my variable name. Okay, this is the minimum syntax. And if you want, then you can initialize the value directly at that moment when you are declaring that variable. So let's see, value to set, that also you can do directly from here. And as you know, all the statements going to end with semicolon, that also you have to give. So now let's see, if I want to create one variable number one. So now tell, if it's a calculator functionality, then in number one, what we are going to store? Am I going to store number one as locus, number one as minus? Not at all, correct? So I want number one should have some 28, 30, or 45, or 50, some kind of integer value, or some kind of decimal value, or double value, correct? So now whenever I am going to declare data member, so first I'll define where this data member going to access. So in this place, when for the data members when declaring, the access specifier can be what kind of access specifier supported here? Let me make a note of it. Access specifier can be a public, okay, can be a private, can be protected also. I will tell what is this protected and why do we need it. Okay, can be global. If it's in the class, and here there is one new I introduced called protected. In the class, I don't have protected. I have private, public, global, but in the data type, I came with something called protected. Okay, it can be protected. Okay, so now public, nothing but again, it can be accessible public key and like key anywhere, and private, nothing but in the scope where you define inside only that it can be accessible, and a global, nothing but we can access anywhere. Okay, so now when I say protected again, we'll see in the time of inheritance how this protected access specifier works. So we're not going to talk now for protected. It's the access specifier which is going to be used when you implement inheritance in my Apex. Okay, so now protected, we'll just keep in a note. Access specifier can be public, private, protected, or global, and protected will talk during my inheritance concept. Okay, so now if I want to define number one, what is going to happen? So I'm not going to define anything as a public because it's optional. If it will not give access specifier, it will go as a class access specifier whatever we have. So now then we come to data type and something called final and static. Okay, so final nothing but you can see like the final value what you want, like a constant. Okay, what final value you want to store on this variable, that's constant. That value is not going to change in the transaction at all. So whenever you want some value, you will set in a variable, and that value is final to that variable name. Let's see, I will say college name equal to some university name I gave. Okay, so that name is final. So in the transaction, that name is not going to modify, not going to change. That time you can say it as final. Okay, so there is static. Static is a very big concept which I'll talk. So right now for reference, I can say whenever you refer something called static, that you can access without creating an object. Okay, I'll come to static discussion completely in the upcoming session. There is a big concept behind the static. Okay, then we come to data type. So what kind of data type we can have whenever I'm defining one data member?
Debasis.
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, final means what you are saying means if you declare the value of variable once, that will not change during the runtime, right?
Yes, in runtime will not change. It's like a constant.
Okay, okay,
Okay, so if I define integer number equal 10, my 10 is a final value to that variable.
okay. Final. If you use the final.
Yes, if you use the final, that's going to be final value to that. And
Okay,
that's where I'm going to change again. It's a final value. It's a constant. You can more often you can tell it's a constant value. Okay. So now same way what going to happen here. So now we are going to see what kind of data type we can set. Okay. There are many type of data types we have. Okay. So see, the moment I said I want to define a number one value, when you understood this number one, what you mean? You understood, okay? There is some 5, 10 or 15 you want to store there. Am I correct? So if it's number one, that the number one we are not going to set like Lokesh or Mohesh or Manos or devices, nothing else. So it's a particular type of data which can be stored on that variable. That's the nothing but which you call as my data type. So see, if it's a calculator class, then what going to happen? In this calculator class, I am going to write, okay, I understood, okay, I want to store number one. So we may write integer number one equal to 10. The moment you write this one, so number one is a variable where I'm going to store data 10 of type integer. Okay, so if it's a variable C, data type nothing but defines what kind of data I can store on the variable. So in the number one, if it is a variable, I define it can store only integer type of data. I cannot store any string, or I cannot store Manos, Mohesh, Lokesh, or US or India. I can store 10, 20, 30, 40, like that some value I can store. If I define somewhere, if I define, I will tell what is the string integer. I will tell. If I define string name, then I can define, okay, name equal to devices. Okay, I cannot define string name equal to my salary. I cannot define there. Okay, string means it could have stored only the string type of data in this place. Okay, that's we call as my string. So now whenever I come to data type, we'll see what kind of data type supported by Salesforce, by Apex more often. Okay, so what kind of data type are supported in the Apex, and what is the different type of data type we have in the Apex. That's the first part we'll see. Okay, so we understood data type nothing but it is all about of what kind of data I'm going to store on a particular variable that we can define using my data type. Okay, and in Salesforce we have different kind of data type. Okay, so okay, what kind of data type you know, location manners? Any
I
data
know
type you have? You know? Mm-hmm.
as object and collection means list, set, map.
Okay, and manners? Any idea what kind of data type you know?
Integer, string, double, long double. Yeah.
Yes. That's absolutely correct what you said. And whenever I say different type data types, we have different categories of data types. Okay, in Apex. See, remember one thing: whenever you want to learn a new language, it may be a technical language, it may be any regional language, it may be any international language. Okay, so we need to, like, if you start from the scratch, you need to understand the alphabet of that. You need to understand how to construct the word from the alphabet, how to construct a sentence from that words, and how to construct a paragraph. Then you can go for a complete book. Then you can be expert in that language. Same way, when you learn the any technical language, you have to learn its syntax. Okay, then how you will write a small statement. Okay, this is PC. This is a small statement, one programming statement I have written, integer number one equal 10. And to write this integer number one, we understood, okay, there is something called integer. These are nothing but I can say my alphabet in my programming language. Okay, using multiple alphabets. Okay, I'm just going to make a word, nothing but which I can say my sentence. So combination of one sentence can be a method and can be a class. So combination of many classes, we can deliver a complete project. Okay, so that's nothing but a technical language, what I can say. So now we are going to learn the basic of it. So for any programming language, we need the first thing to learn what kind of data type it's supporting. Data type nothing but it defines what kind of value I can store in a variable. So in the Salesforce, we have something called primitive type of data, primitive data type. Okay, we have S object data type. I'll come what is S data type. We have collection data type. Okay, and in the collection we have multiple options there. We'll come to there, and we have some enum kind of data type also. Okay, and also we have custom data type also. I'll tell what is this custom data type. Okay, so any combination can be. Whenever I'm saying the primitive data type, as you said, integer, strings, all the options, these all type of data type fall under the primitive. Okay, so in the primitive data type, what we have? We have one data type called blob. I'll come alphabetically whatever things we have. Okay, so one statement you can always remember: data type nothing but it's going to define what kind of value I can store on a variable. Okay, that's the first thing. That is a basic principle. And in the primitive type, okay, where I can store exactly one value at a time. Okay, one value. Like say I say integer number 1 equal 10. That means 10 is a single value which can be stored in number 1. And in number 1, I cannot store 10 and 20. So wherever I can store a single value, okay, that type of data type, I can say primitive type data type. So it can be a blob, it can be a boolean. I'll define each of these. What is blob, what is boolean, okay? And same I can say something called date. Many data types which Salesforce supports. Okay, we have date time, we have decimal, we have double, we have also ID also is one data type. We have integer, we have long. They are different type of data type which we are going to use. We have also object is also one type of data type. We have string, we have also time. Okay, these are the multiple primitive data types which Salesforce supports. And when I say blob is data type, it's nothing but you can say it's a binary large object data type. Okay, blob nothing but we can say it's a binary large object data type. So now it's what happened. It's a collection of binary data. You see, this blob is a complex one, like we use very rare, but remember it. So it's a collection of binary data which is going to stored in a single object. Okay, there are many predefined method we have in Salesforce platform which we can use to convert it to string or from string to blob. That we'll see. It's nothing but a binary large object where you have like for example, let's see you have where we use this one. Let's see you have a document, okay, and the document content is a very big data for me. There are 20 pages of content I have in a document. I want to store it somewhere, or there is an image. I want to store image in somewhere. All are going to store in a blob file, in a blob type of data. These are we call as a binary large object. And when it's a boolean, it's nothing but it's a true false. It can store either true or false. Like we can say, are you working somewhere? Yes or no. That kind of data where you want to store, that kind you can use boolean true false. It can have true, false, and also it can store null in Apex. Okay, that also we can do. So simply I can define boolean is working. I can say null also is valid statement in the Apex. It's not valid in the Java or C++, C# anywhere, but boolean can have a null also. So if you do not initialize any value to a variable, all variables are going to be assigned with a null value. Okay. So now, yes, tell me.
Question. So when you are discussing about blob, you told one thing, right? So for example, if you have discussed all this theory means like class calculate, all these things, it will store as a binary digits. That's what you're
yes,
saying.
if you define a blob, it's going to store as a binary large object. So we'll see this example whenever we are going to use the crypto class. Like I have one complex example I'm giving. So let's see, I'm doing integration between two systems, and from server side I got a certificate to be used. The certificate data I can store in a blob. Okay, that kind of we are going to use in that context.
When you work with SOAP, generally you use blob. I read
Correct.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, because in the where transmission data that is coming as a large object, correct? So that's we're converting to blob. Blob to strings to blob we can convert. We have many methods. We'll come to that part also. Okay.
Okay.
So that's fall in the blob. So boolean nothing but my true false value. you can store either true or false. It's nothing but a question mark. Is it question mark? Is it this? Yes or no? That kind of thing. And if you want to store any kind of date value, then we will define data type as date. Whenever you want, like say today's date, it simply can store as 28 in the local, like your user local, whatever you have. In that way, it will store 28072019. And if you say date time, it store the date with time value 28072019. And this thing also, if you work in the admin part in the formula, or that time also you can see, or in validation rule you can see date and date time type of functions you may have seen when you're writing a validation rule. Same thing also we have the date and date time. Okay, so now same way we have something called decimal, where I can, if you want to store data like 43.87, okay, these are nothing but going to be decimal type of data. Okay, so number with my decimal part or my decimal points. So when you want to store that kind of data, I can go for my decimal. And when you want to double, okay, double nothing but it's a 64-bit number which also includes my decimal points. Okay, and it so that time when you want, then we can go for double. So normally if you see, this 43.86 also can be represented in a double, but if you see the technical backend of this, so it's a 64-bit number including my decimal points. Okay, double may have minimum of this much of data, -2 to the power 63. Okay, I'll let me write it to the power of 63. Okay, it's a very big value of decimal points we can store in a double. Okay, and a maximum we can store with the double as 2 to the power 63 and -1. Okay, so that double value we can store that way. And also when you say ID, as we know, Salesforce and Salesforce admin things, we have worked in the Salesforce part. So every record we represent with a record ID. Okay, if I open a particular record here, you can see this record have a particular record ID. These are nothing but my, I can store in the ID. So this ID can be 18 digit or can be 15 digit, 18 character or 15 characters. Okay, so that ID you want to store, you can make my data type as ID also. And if you want to store in integer value, see, I can type 40, 54, 67, 89, any integer value you can store in integer. Okay, now when you come to the long, it's also a 64-bit number which doesn't include any decimal points. See, between this double and long, it's the same thing, but double comes with my decimal points, long is without my decimal points. Okay, these are my long values. And object nothing but, so it's like in the Salesforce we have okay, just give a minute, I'll just put in the charts. Okay,
This conference will now be recorded.
okay, so what you understood from this, there are many type of data types provided by Salesforce, which we may say as data types. Nothing but we have a primitive type data types. We have let me make a list here. Primitive type, S object. We have collection, enum, and customer data type. In the primitive, we saw all this the object, integer, string, double, everything. And in the S object, nothing but we are going to target my object specific data types. Okay, so it may be a standard object, it may be a custom object. In the standard object, we can say like account is object. That object also can be a data type for me. Or custom object, if you have anything like a purchase order or maybe lead reference, it may be a custom objects. So anything custom object we have, that also can be a data type for me. Like how you write account SCC equal to new account, that also we can do same way. And when you see account SCC equal to new account, nothing but I can say, so SCC is one data type of account object data type, where I'm going to store account type of record in SCC. Same way it may be a custom object. And whenever you want to store the collection of values in one variable, like 10, 20, 30, 40, or some multiple students' names, that time I can go for collection, list, set, map, array, which we will see in the upcoming session, how I'm going to define collection and what are the things we can do in the collections. Okay. And the same way enum, nothing but my abstract data type, where I will define my possible set of values in the enum variable and which we can refer in my logic. Same way, I can define my custom data type where I am going to store my Apex class as a data type in my class or anywhere, like wherever you want, I can do that. Okay, so any question till now?
Could you explain this custom data type one more time? Sorry, I didn't understand it.
Perfect, no worries. See, I'm just going to, for example, just see, I'm just going to define one class here. Let's see, public class. I will say it's my student class. It's my student class, correct? So now on the student class, I'll have something inside this. I'm not going to write here. So it's just a class. Now I want to define one more class. This is one class we created and saved in my system. I want to create one more class, which name I have given as library. Okay, it may be one class for me. So inside the library, I'm just defining who are the students going to be enrolled on each part. Who is going to be representative of this library? Okay, so that time I can define one data type, nothing but student stud. So if I define like this stud is one variable of
Yes.
what type of data it can store. It can store the type of data, nothing but like a student. Am I correct?
Yes.
So student, what is student? Student is a Apex class for me. So I can define one Apex class as a data type also. So whenever you want any Apex class, the custom classes what you have developed, or maybe some standard class what we have in the system, if you want to use that class as a data type, you can use that also.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, understood.
Perfect.
So you are using
So
a class data type. That's it, right?
yes, class as a data type. And
Okay.
also, see, if you see this account ACC, also you can say this is also a class data type. Account nothing but a class for me. So all objects what we have, every object is a class for me in programmatically. Okay, it may be an object in database or might be table in database, but I can say it is a class for me on program layer, on my business layer. It's a class, account ACC. I can simply say account is a subject, but I will treat it as a class always. It's a class. It has some method, it has some properties. Okay, we'll come to that part completely, don't worry. So till now, do you have any question, Manas?
No, Devashish.
Yeah, and the moment you will not you will feel bored, or you will lose the interest, let me know. Okay, we are going to have a long session, so I don't want you to miss something. Okay, I want the session should be so smooth and so slow, you understand everything from the scratch first. Okay, perfect. So now you understood how we are going to define a data type, and with using many predefined data types, whatever we got from the Salesforce. Okay, it's maybe primitive, or maybe collection, maybe S object, maybe enum, or anything. So these are my classes. So now if let's go to my class example. Okay, so let's see, I want to create a class. So whenever I want to create a class, many things. So there are some kind of development environment I need, wherever I can write my logic, wherever I can create my classes. See, Salesforce being a cloud platform where they're providing platform as a service, service like for writing any kind of logic or any kind of customization. I don't need to have any local setup in my system. Okay, and there is also some mechanism where you can have local setups using Eclipse, or maybe using my Visual Studio Code, anything. But if you go here, also I can create a class from here. If you go to my setup, there are two mechanisms I'm showing where without installing anything you can do. I can go to my class here. Okay. Under the develop, you can write my Apex classes. You can say Apex class, and here you can click the new and you can write whatever the Apex programming you want. This is one part. And also, if you want, you can go to developer console. You can type on your name here, wherever you can see my developer console. You can go here, it will open one developer console window. Okay, where also you can create my new class, file new and Apex class. You can do from here, enter the class name, click OK. Let's see, I just want to create welcome CLS, some class name I gave the OK. See, it's creating a class with Apex EAPXC extension. And also, I can write some kind of code. See, if I wrote this class and now I'm just writing one data member here, integer x equal 10, and I just save it. What it do? You remember the previous session? it will go to my metadata server and store it. Okay, because it's saved successfully without any compilation error. So that means I have written some kind of logic where I have given a name. Name is welcome CLS, and also I can write some kind of execution I want to do, but I do not want to store in my metadata server. One time I want to write and execute. Then what I can do? I can do my anonymous window where I don't need to write any kind of logic, but what I can do? I can simply execute it. That kind of thing also we can do here. Execute it. So I just complete my execution, but I am not going to store anywhere. So that kind of do when you want, you can do my execute anonymous window. I'll make completely introduction of this developer console, what options we have. Okay, I am just giving you where I can write a class. I'm writing a class under the setup. I went to develop. Under the develop, I have Apex class. I'm just going to write one Apex class here. So I just click new. Okay, let's see. I want to write a calculator class. So now you guys tell me how I can write a class. What should I write first? I want to write a calculator class. What should I write? Manas?
Yeah, access specifier like public,
Public, perfect.
class name,
No, public, then class, then I
class,
give the
class
class
name.
name.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. I give something called class calculator. Perfect. This is my
Yes.
class. See, I just save it. So now the class nothing but it's just a template. Sorry, I should not give this brackets. It's my mistake. I just give the bracket. Public class name, then bracket. I just made quick save. So you can do complete save, nothing but it will be saved. And if you want to modify again, you edit. Or you can do quick save, so it will save and also it will open for edit to you. Public class calculator. So on this part, what I mean, calculator is a class which can be accessible anywhere on this earth and it's stored in my metadata server. So in the inside this class, what I can write? I can write my data member. So in the calculator, what I want to store? I want to store two numbers and I want to do addition, multiplication, division. So what I'll do here first? How I can define a data member? Tell me.
int.
Okay. No, for me, it is not int. For me, it is integer.
Okay, yes, integer. Sorry.
Integer. Yes. So I'll write integer, then I'll give some name, correct?
Yes.
So let's see, I'll give the name as number 1. Okay. Do I have to store the do I want to initialize the value or not? If yes, simply I can do number 1 equal 10. Correct?
Yes.
Same way, I can define one more variable, number 2, where I can store value as 20. Perfect?
Yes.
Perfect. So now, this way, I just define a class with my adding my data members. So class can contain what more things? It can contain data member and member method. So let's see what is this member method and how I am going to write the member method in a class. Okay. Then we'll come back to many more things. Very basic things we're discussing. Once we clear in the basics, then we can progress so quickly for the advanced topics. Don't worry for it. Okay. So if tomorrow somebody give you to write a small class, can you write this statement, public class name, then what data they want to store, you can write with my data types, what kind of data they want to store based on take the data type and then give the variable name, and if data need to be stored as some initialization value that you can define here. Okay, that much thing. So now we understood, okay, what is my class variable. Okay, in the class variable what I can store. Same way I said in the same part, I have whenever defining a class, I have also a member method or class member. Let's see what is this class member. Okay, so whenever I'm saying this class member, sorry, class method, what does it mean? So it's nothing but it defines the behavior of the class. See, data members are define the state of the class, okay, what it contains, and class method defines the behavior. See, Manas is a person with name as Manas, okay, and age is something, and gender is male, and qualification is something. Okay, now these are the state